Thank you.
And you've just heard the words that signal the beginning of the ceremony, where Paul Senese's mother is unable to join us tonight, but she asked that the celebration be recorded so that she can watch it at a later date. So we will be recording this, and I'll make it available, generally available to anybody who wants it, but certainly we're doing this particularly for the Senese family. But I think we should probably get the ceremony underway. And let me start by welcoming you. I think you all know me. I'm Monroe Eagles, professor and chair of the Department of Political Science. And I'm delighted that you could join us for this rather unusual graduate student award ceremony, a virtual ceremony. We were interrupted with our plans to have one last year by the arrival, almost a year to the day, of COVID. And so we were determined not to be frozen out another year. So we've done this, we've decided to go virtually with this award ceremony. And of course, the good news is that Claude Welch can join us for this as well very easily from his home in Boston. And as you may have surmised from our chat earlier on, I'm actually joining you from Nova Scotia. So it's that kind of time, COVID time. This is a special occasion for the department. Obviously, we're one of 4 university centers in the SUNY system. And that means that we have the distinctive mission of providing graduate education up to and including the highest level degree that is available in our discipline, the PhD. We join, of course, Albany, Binghamton, and Stony Brook in being the 4 university center campuses. So that gives us at UB a very special mission, and we take that mission extremely seriously. We are extremely proud of our graduate students and our efforts to provide a high quality graduate education. We work very closely with the students, and that includes the award winners that you're going to see this evening. We believe that we impart skills that are of increasing value over time, particularly in the area of quantitative and data analytics and writing skills. We live in an information-rich age, and these skills are increasingly going to be mission critical for a whole variety of careers, not just academic careers. So we are taking pleasure in seeing our students not just join the professoriate, but also find rewarding careers in a host of different sectors and in professions. So this ceremony, this award ceremony, gives us a chance to celebrate the extraordinary talent, hard work, and achievement of our graduate student cohort. And it also gives us an opportunity, because the awards we'll be presenting this evening are named awards, named in honor of former colleagues, one of whom, as you know, is with us this evening, Claude Welch, and the other, sadly, is not with us this evening, Paul Senese. So with these awards, we keep the memory of the contributions of these 2 extraordinary individuals, Claude Welch and Paul Senese, alive and with us in the department. Delighted to see department colleagues here with us, graduate students and next generation graduate student in the case of Kristen's little baby. We don't have a long program tonight. I hope you've seen the program. We have 2 Best Paper Awards and then a Graduate Student Award. So let me turn the ceremony over to first Claude Welch to say a few words about the Best Paper Award that he generously endowed to the department. We're very grateful, Claude, that you give us this opportunity to recognize the extraordinary performances of some of our top graduate students. So I'll turn it over first to Claude, and I believe then we can turn it over to Michelle Benson, who's with us and our wonderful Director of Graduate Studies to actually make the award presentations, because both of these papers who are going to be recognized this evening and both of the students who are here with us were students and wrote their papers for Michelle Benson's class. So it's really wonderful to have Claude and Michelle here. So first, Claude, can I turn things over to you to say a few words about your awards and perhaps whatever else you'd like to share with us this evening. So.
Well, it's such an honor to be part of this really exceptional ceremony because we're honoring the most important people at a university. And it's not the faculty, it's the students. So congratulations to all of you for jobs well done. The award itself reflects the fact that our official title is the University at Buffalo _ the State University of New York. That was something that was discussed in the administration for quite a while, but it's to try and show that we are one of 4 university centers, as Monroe pointed out, but we are the best. We're pushing the hardest. Well, some may contest this, but I think from the placements of our graduate students in industry and NGOs, in IGOs, and in the professoriate, they have all done well. So it's clear that from the Outstanding Paper Awards, that people in this department have come from a variety of backgrounds, that they have learned much, and that they are contributing to the welfare of humanity as a whole through their scholarship. So to the winners, congratulations, job well done. I look forward to seeing your name inscribed on the panel in outside 520, and keep up the good work. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Claude.
Michelle.
And now over to you, Michelle. You can be the master of ceremonies for the actual award presentations. So over to you. Thanks.
Sounds good. Oh, shoot, I don't have screen sharing. I don't know. I have the actual certificates that Mary sent me, a photo that I can put up on the screen.
Okay, go ahead, Michelle. I think you should be able to now.
Thank you. Okay. So there we go. Hopefully,
yes.
The first award is for Derrick's paper on WTO membership-led trade openness and labor participation rates. And I'm going to speak a little bit, just very, very briefly, generally about each of these papers. I'll stop my share right now. Derrick's paper asked whether accession to the WTO led to liberalization, which leads to liberalization of trade, and whether that leads to lower trade barriers and thus better economic activity and a higher demand for labor and trader goods in general. And so this was an extremely well-written paper, a conference level paper within my graduate class, without a question. Is one of the best literature reviews, I wrote a note, that I've ever read. So great job, Derrick, on that. Not only did he understand the literature, but he used it so well to set up his own theoretical argument for why, being a part of the WTO might have an effect on labor within these countries. He did an excellent empirical test, and it was just an extremely strongly written paper, and one that should be presented and hopefully should be sent out for publication sometime in the future. So I would like to say, Derrick, congratulations on your Best Paper Award. So, so the second Best Paper Award is also, for, where am I? There we go. I can read. There we go. Oops, I'm sorry about that. There we go. For Andrew Brown and his paper on IGO free riding, military expenditures, and security IGOs. So when I read this paper, this was another paper that I was extremely impressed by in my class. And I should mention that in this class, there were a lot of really, really good papers in this class. But reading Andrew's paper, it was so well argued. It was such an original question, basically, and it was one of those things that you wonder, why didn't I think of that? And it was also perfectly tested, and when I read this paper, I had to remind myself, is Andrew an IR student? And then I remembered Andrew is actually an American politics student. So that even more impressive. Andrew, come over to our side. I want you to study international relations and comparative politics, because if all of your ideas are as good as this one, you have a really, really good future ahead of you. So another paper, I was extremely impressed by this. It was conference ready almost paper. It should definitely be sent out for consideration for publication, which I put in the notes for his paper as well as Derrick's paper. And so I would just say, Andrew, keep it up. Excellent paper. Very nice job.
Wonderful. I'll add my congratulations to Derrick and Andrew both. Terrific work.
Mhm.
It makes this job the best job any person could have in the world, to have an opportunity to work with students at this level and producing work of this caliber. It's an extraordinary honor for all of us to have that experience. So congratulations on works well done.
Mhm.
And it's time now to turn to the other award category that we are making this evening. And this is the Paul Senese Graduate Student Award, named in honor of a fallen colleague, Paul Senese, who was taken from us far too young at the very outset of a very promising career. So again, Michelle, if I can turn this over to you. As a colleague, we know Paul. Those of us of a certain age know and remember Paul fondly for the extraordinary individual that he was. But Michelle, perhaps more than some of us, knows him well because they were colleagues in the same field. So if I could turn to Michelle again to make the Paul Senese Award. Michelle.
I'm honored to make this award. And before I do so, I'd like to speak a little bit about Paul. And so Frank was lucky enough to give a great speech about Paul the last time that we had an award ceremony for this. And I'm lucky enough to speak about him now in this award ceremony. And as Monroe mentioned, Paul was a professor here at UB when I arrived, and he was one of the reasons that I was very excited to come to UB. So in addition to being an incredibly bright academic who was already very, very well respected in his field, I soon found out that Paul was also just a great person. So my admiration for Paul's work only grew during my time as a colleague with him. He was already an important name in the field, but obviously more important than recognition to him were his personal relationships. And Paul was the type of person, the type of colleague who asked and offered to read my research. That is not many of us are saying, oh, can I read an extra paper? Paul was so happy to lend a hand whenever he could. He was just as enthusiastic about my success, I felt, as he was about his own. And over the years, I got to know him and Tracy over wine tasting, trips to Finger Lakes, dinners at each other's houses, movies, and just chatting in the halls. He was an ideal colleague, fun, nice, and smart. The only thing I can think of that wasn't perfect about Paul is that despite being Italian American like myself, he did not like strong black licorice. However, he did have an amazing taste for all other types of foods and a great appreciation for food. He was the first person who really got me thinking about organic food and food that was, really good for you, just food in general. And Paul got me thinking, of course, about a lot of other things, the importance of relationships, of family, and compassion. At a time when I had not realized how seriously ill he was, he gave me comfort during my own personal loss. So he had love and empathy to spare. I learned a lot from Paul, and I'm still learning from Paul. His memory brings a smile to my face, and through him and his lessons, both personal and professional, I'm striving to have as positive an impact as he has had on so many. So I can say that we have a very, very worthy recipient of the Paul Senese Award this year, not just in terms of his professional attributes, but in terms of his personal attributes as well. And that is Christopher Newton. So Christopher, so well deserved. And before this award, I'll show you the certificate, but there's a lot to say about Christopher and his work. And I've been lucky enough to work with Christopher, but Christopher's advisor, Jake Kathman, is going to be saying a few words about Christopher as well. Let me go ahead and share whoops, it's not come up again, shoot, I'm sorry. There we go. There is a certificate for Christopher. And in addition to a book that was generously provided by John Vasquez, Paul and John's co-authored book, the Senese family also has an award fellowship for Christopher Newton. So let me go ahead and now turn it over to Jake, so you can speak about Chris.
Okay, and I am more than happy to make Chris feel uncomfortable with how many nice things I plan to say about him. And knowing Chris, he will certainly be uncomfortable with how the lack of humility I'm able to show. Although he would struggle with it himself. But before I do that, if there was an award that I would want to win, it would be this one. And Michelle, you said something that resonated with me, that you mentioned Paul's warm personality and the importance of his personal relationships and how he was there for you. And I didn't know Paul, so for those in his family who are here, I arrived at UB after Paul had passed, and I shouldn't say I didn't know him. I met him on one occasion, and I want to mention the importance of this is not a really this memory is not one that I think is one that sticks with everyone, but it's a very small thing that I think is important, how these little small things can affect people. I met Paul on one occasion. It was in 2005 at the Iowa Peace Science. As I understand it, it was his last Peace Science. Everyone knew Paul in Peace Science, and in particular, my advisor did. His name is Mark Crescenzi, and I think one thing a good advisor will do is try to introduce you to people at the small conferences, so as to spread your name around, and hopefully one day it might lead to relationships that maybe can have productive professional consequences, networking as they call it. And the one person he wanted to make sure that I met at Peace Science was Paul, because he knew that I'm from the Buffalo area, and Paul, having been from Buffalo and having achieved the rare feat of getting to work in your hometown as an academic it's a pretty big deal. So he introduced me to Paul, and I was nervous about it because the one place that I wanted to work was UB, and knowing Paul worked there, I was excited about the prospect that I could meet somebody that might, I might one day, try to talk into employing me. And my advisor had this line he would use with all of his graduate students when they would be nervous about going to a conference, and he would say, "Don't worry, because as a grad student, you can wear a lobster on your head and no one will notice at this conference." It's not true. It's not true for my graduate students who are here. That you always want to put your best foot forward. And so I went in expecting little in the way of any sort of conversation with Paul, but I did go about looking around for little testimonials about Paul before this meeting, and I found Sandra's article that you wrote recently, or not, I don't know how recently, actually there's no date on it, but it describes your brother, and the way that you describe him in this article on the Boldly Buffalo page is very similar to how Michelle just described him. And I'll say in just the few minutes that I talked to Paul, he gave me all of his attention. I was a nobody at the time. He engaged me, and there were a lot of people around. He had no need at that point, especially in his life, to spend that time with me. So it was a special, it was a small thing, but it was special to me. Fast forward 7 years, and I arrived at UB in the job that I had always wanted. And lo and behold, I see in the office that I had been assigned to, my nameplate had not been updated with my name. But you could see the letters where Paul's name had been scraped off the same nameplate. And I took a picture of that and sent it to my advisor immediately. You could see from the light had washed it permanently onto the nameplate. And he just, sent me a text back that was very nice, recalling his relationship with Paul. I just thought that was a cool thing. So I'm really happy to still be in that office. In any case, that's a long lead up to talking about Chris. Talk about lucky. I mean, Chandoshi, if I'm not mistaken, you won this award last year. Is that correct?
Yes.
And Chris is winning the award this year, and I have a great deal of luck in being able to advise both of their dissertations. I think it's fair to say about both Chandoshi and Chris that they are exceptional graduate students. They are the model graduate students. Chris is the type of grad student who does not need to be motivated. And in fact, in a recent meeting on Zoom, I started to worry about him a little bit because it was like when he shared his screen, it was like he was inside the Matrix. He just had windows for all of his programs running all at the same time, and he had his writing up on the screen. He's an exceptional graduate student, has the makings, I think, of an exceptional academic into his future, if that's the path he ends up choosing ultimately. But there are a number of things that I took from Sandra's description of Paul that I think are really similar to Chris. I had the benefit, the pleasure of evaluating Chris's teaching this past year, and we are all in this new weird world. And Chris is thrown into that as one of his first teaching experiences to try to reach students online. And honestly, I had a tough time critiquing. I know I had to do some critiquing of his teaching, but my primary critique was that he was doing too good a job. I mean, he needed to loosen his grip a little bit because his lectures were great, almost a little too great. It made me feel self-conscious about my lectures that had a lot of uhs and ums and long pauses. And for someone who speaks slowly generally, those make for some pretty long and boring lectures sometimes. But Chris weren't like that. And I get the sense from talking to Chris that comes from a sort of meticulous and organized and careful approach to teaching because he cares about his students. Chris is also what in the business, we call it a good department citizen. I used to before COVID and will again, once we can return back to each other, run a research group called the Political Violence Research Group. Chris is one of the, I don't want to say the because there are other these in this room we have here, most common contributor to the group. And if you know something about the group, you know that it's as collective an effort as we can make it, meaning that you start with a project and that project becomes everyone's responsibility to help improve. And Chris is always that for other people, not to mention the fact that he has ideas that are unending to present to the group. He has ideas that are unending that he is working on to the point that he's reached saturation. He cannot take on new projects. But what I think is really important is this sort of selfless nature in the way that Chris helps others with their own research, in the same unassuming way that Sandra had described Paul in the article that she had written about him. And then last, that, you know, as a researcher, Chris is super talented, and I really pray that the job market is one that picks up, because we have so many talented students in our department at the moment that are deserving of very good jobs. And Chris is one of those people. He's self-motivated. He reads voraciously. He knows how to do things methodologically that I don't understand. And that is, well, that's a lot of things that I don't understand. But Chris is doing work that, like Paul's, was groundbreaking, especially with The Steps to War, a book that he wrote with John Vasquez. Chris is on the path to writing a dissertation I think will be consequential. He's looking at the quality of peace post-conflict, post-Civil War, looking at homicide rates, what could motivate those things. He's working on different areas of conflict processes, new areas that are relatively untapped. He's working on peacekeeping. I hope that this comes from, his interest in this comes from an interest in, a more peaceful world one day as well. And I think there's a good deal that we can learn about about that from his research. So that was a long way of saying Chris is really good at what he does in all the different levels of being an academic. And while I didn't know Paul well, I'd like to think that that Chris is an excellent recipient for that reason. So, to Chris.
Thank you, Jake and Michelle, for those reminiscences. And again, congratulations, Chris, for being a deserving recipient of this significant recognition. With that presentation, we're at the end of our graduate awards ceremony. So let me bring our virtual gathering to a close by thanking you all for being here, my colleagues in the department, Claude for being here, graduate students in the department, members of the Senese family. We're grateful for your support of our students and of our department as we, try to be the very best program in political science that we can possibly be. And it's really quite wonderful to be able to celebrate the achievements of our graduate students. They're so much a part of our community and so much a part of the reason we do what we do. So we hope to be next year in a position to gather once again together in person and break bread and again remember the extraordinary contributions of Claude and Paul, both to our department, and another group of graduate students as they continue to strive for excellence in their work. So let me just again close by congratulating our award winners tonight for a job well done. Good luck as you continue with your studies. I echo Jake's hope that our job market is robust when you come out. You richly deserve to have the kinds of careers that we're preparing you for in the professoriate, but we'll support you in no matter what direction your careers may take you. So thank you all again, and be safe, stay well, and we look forward to seeing you next year, if not before. Some of my colleagues I'll see very soon, but thanks all for coming, and good night.
Good night.
Right.